Okay, Elissa, with that, I'm giving the word over to you.
Welcome, everyone, to my thesis presentation, Pepita de Oro, How AlVelAl is Building a Regional Regenerative Agriculture Transformation Through Social Innovations. So we all know the story. Food systems must transform. They are the villain, contributing to biodiversity loss, climate change, and topsoil crises, yet also the victim of these crises, and if transformed, potentially the hero to solve these crises. Oh, actually, sorry about that. The villain, the victim, and the hero, it's bananas, the same character. And regenerative agriculture could be a part of that hero story. It aims to rebuild agroecosystem health. And it promises a lot of benefits, and those benefits are drawing actors' attention. An explosion of corporate initiatives are drawn to regenerative's ability to sequester carbon and make supply chains more resilient to climate shocks. Policymakers are drawn by its environmental and nutritional benefits. The Common Agricultural Policy, Green Deal, and EU soil health strategy all engage with practices that are part of regenerative. But, big but, how to ensure farmers actually will transition their practices is complicated. Because regenerative prioritizes ecosystem health over productivity, yields can decrease, especially early on in transition. And so it can take time to be profitable, as it requires a whole new mindset and skill set. So how can institutions and wider networks of actors support regenerative agriculture transitions? I addressed this question through a case study of Regenerative Agriculture Association AlVelAl and their efforts to transform their territory. Here you can see their vision in action. This is an AlVelAl farmer's almond trees with cover crops planted underneath. So, responding to calls for research to better articulate the transformations we're examining, I detail here that I examined the institution of AlVelAl and their efforts to transform regional agricultural practices and social networks through implementing social innovations to benefit the region's environment and people. AlVelAl is located in Southeast Spain and covers 5 subregions with shared climate, history, and challenges. Those challenges, depicted here in photos from my fieldwork, are desertification caused by climate change and decades of conventional agriculture, and rural depopulation caused by lack of jobs and lack of intergenerational turnover on farms. AlVelAl works primarily and is funded primarily by Common Land, which is a Dutch NGO specializing in ambitious landscape restoration projects worldwide. So AlVelAl is 8 years old now, and currently they have 490 members, over half of whom are farmers, using regenerative techniques on 10,800 hectares, with 3 different business platforms to sell their regenerative crops. Here we see some AlVelAl members, and AlVelAl members who are not farmers include a diverse array of actors. Everybody is welcome to join, even you, if you'd like to. Dun, 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 the research questions. So my first question is, how does AlVelAl's social innovations build regenerative agriculture in the region? My second explores how AlVelAl navigates different sociocultural, ecological, and political contexts across scales to amplify the transformative potential of its social innovations. And my theoretical framework draws from 3 different threads of research: sustainability transformations in food systems, institutional adaptive capacity, and social innovations through bricolage. For sustainability transformations in food systems, I employ a framework that identifies 3 approaches: structural, which considers fundamental changes in society; Systemic, which is the social ecological systems thinking approach that looks at drivers across scales and institutions and innovations. And lastly, enabling approaches, which highlight bottom-up processes of collective action. And my study seeks to unlock the complementary potential of considering together the systemic and enabling aspects of transformation. To understand how AlVelAl builds its adaptive capacity as an institution to confront these regional challenges, I examine how adaptive capacity can be developed via 5 domains: learning, agency, assets, flexibility, and organization. Lastly, I employ social innovations as the idea of services developed to address social needs and create new collaborations. Bricolage is a useful concept for understanding how social innovations are implemented. It is French for tinkering, so being creative and pragmatic with the resources that are contextually relevant. So a quick rundown of my methods. I did participant observation at 7 events hosted by AlVelAl and other organizations, and 16 semi-structured interviews with various AlVelAl actors, and field notes where I recorded my daily ethnographic and reflexive observations of life in the region. Interviews were then coded and analyzed. So what did I find? The fun part. I identified 5 social innovations that foster regenerative agriculture via systemic collective action across scales and enabling farmers' transitions. These 5 social innovations also support the adaptive capacity domains. As shown here, I focused on one adaptive capacity domain for each innovation. So going left to right, first, the workshops support learning regenerative practices. Second, Almendrehesa cooperative increases farmer agency by enabling farmers to sell their regenerative almonds. Third, the grants provide assets to support farmers in implementing the practices. Fourth, the machine bank offers farmers free agricultural machinery to borrow, giving them flexibility to try new practices. And lastly, the Manifesto for Regenerative Territory is a document articulating AlVelAl's future vision for the territory. And AlVelAl is using it to organize local actors to enact change together. What social innovations AlVelAl has created is important, but how AlVelAl implements them is the key to ensuring they're successful and that they actually build toward the desired regional transformation. So let's dig into the how. I identified 4 strategies AlVelAl uses to amplify its social innovations' transformative potential. These are leveraging synergies between social innovations, employing social ecological relational thinking, social mobilization through vision, and adopting a cross-scale approach. And first, we'll look at 2 examples of how these 2 strategies on the left are enabling farmers' transitions. So here we have a circle that highlights the social innovations synergizing and interlocking to better enable farmers to transform their practices. The workshops provide the training, the grants, the resources. The machines provide the ability to manage the practices, and the cooperative pays price premiums. And interviewees flagged that it's super important that there's multiple entry points for farmers with different interests. So here we have a quote highlighting how the machine bank acts as an entry point. The machine bank attracts farmers who weren't interested in regenerative, but now farmers have access to machines. This motivates them to try new practices without spending a lot of money. So 2 of the practices that are most difficult for farmers to implement are decreased tilling and cover crops, because they go against the cultural norm of tilling 6 times per year to keep your parcels limpio, meaning clean, of any plants under the trees, like on the left. Ecologically, the farmers also fear that cover crops will compete with almond trees for the scarce water in the territory. So AlVelAl employs a social ecological approach to attend to these interrelated barriers. And here we see the circle again, but with specifics about cover crops. So the workshops normalize no-till and cover cropping, combating the cultural stigma. The grants give cover crop seeds to plant. The machines allow farmers to mow the cover crops and convert them into green manure to increase soil fertility. And the price premiums cover any yield losses due to water competition from cover crops. And importantly, Almendrehesa sets the requirement for its cooperative members to 3 times per year for tilling, with the agreement that they will work towards 0 times tilling per year, thereby providing contextually feasible interim steps. And so back to the 4 strategies. Now we'll look at these 2 strategies on the right and 2 examples of how AlVelAl is building systemic collective action. Here we have the machine bank, the inauguration party for it. And this took a lot of effort over many years and a strategy across scales to achieve. It really required translating the importance of the machine bank for outside donors. So donors want to fund tree planting, sustainability things. Being outside the territory, they don't see how important the machine bank is socially. Finally, we invited philanthropists to visit the farms to see what we do. For example, one young farmer who has cover crops said, "Look, there, I have the green manure, but I can't afford to pay someone to process it." And there we opened their minds. We found our financiers. It also shifts the local culture towards one of greater collaboration. So this quote, "It is a social project. The culture here is my machine, my field, my almonds. So to take care of machines together, it opens people up to sharing. And you have to ask your neighbors to see if they need the machine." So farms that didn't know each other before now do. That connection is created. And lastly, we'll look at social mobilization through the Manifesto for a Regenerative Territory. The Manifesto articulates AlVeLAL's vision for creating a thriving regenerative landscape in the process of natural, social, and economic revitalization. The sign says in Spanish, "Regenerating soil, rooting people," highlighting how AlVelAl views the social and ecological regeneration as intimately linked. And stage 1 of the manifesto was envisioning it through a 2022 public participatory workshop with diverse local actors. Now moving into stage 2, AlVelAl is asking all the mayors of the territory's 71 villages to sign their support. Next steps are in yellow, and it's to use the manifesto as a political tool to speak with the Andalusian and national governments about supporting regenerative, possibly through formal certification. And here are 2 quotes highlighting the 2-stage strategy. "We want to unite 5 regions with shared roots. This is why we did the participatory workshop, so that people feel the manifesto is also theirs. And we tried to write it in a way that stirs up pride for our shared identity and natural and cultural values. And people sometimes see AlVelAl as only regenerative. The manifesto broadens the movement, mobilizes political participation, shows AlVelAl has a vision for the territory's future. The manifesto raises the right questions, gets people to know us at the local level. It is necessary to gain support from public institutions because everyone listens to them." So, to summarize, my contributions to the conceptual realm of transformation, specifically food system transformation, is identifying strategies that can amplify adaptive capacities' transformative potential. Secondly, I demonstrated the value of examining together complementary, systemic, and enabling approaches to transformation. Topically, my contribution to regenerative is that enabling farmers requires wider networks of actors and institutions to design contextually sensitive support, and that enacting regenerative agriculture in places takes time, sustained effort, and incremental evolving steps. Limitations of my research and future research directions, my approach assumed that AlVelAl's vision for transformation was inherently desirable. A more critical lens could go on to examine trade-offs or power relations, possibly, for example, through exploring farmers' differential capacity to benefit from AlVelAl in regenerative agriculture. Thanks so much, everyone. I look forward to chatting about everything.